knees to survive the rest of that. So, I've got some notes here of things that are kind of important to me. When Jamie initially got in touch, his idea was trying to share some experience being a multi-instrumentalist. For anyone who doesn't know, drums were not my primary instrument. I began as a guitar player as a young lad, and the infatuation with music was kind of ingrained from the family life very early on, and parents were, luckily very supportive of that endeavour. My father, who is here today, is also a rather accomplished punk drummer. And yeah, I think that there's always a bit of there's always been a creative push in my household. My sister is a graphic designer. My other sister is I suppose she was very, very interested in politics and journalism and trying to find ways to share the story of the world. And my mum was a flautist, dad a musician and a mechanical engineer, and a great inventor as well. So that was always around. I went through primary school playing guitar. I saw Joe Satriani live at Challenge Stadium in 2006 and went, yep, that's the goal. And then I think maybe 4 months later, I ended up in high school and joining the big band, where I was hip to saxophone, and then went, actually no, that's the goal. That looks great, standing in front of a 17-piece trumpet section or horn section. So I took up the saxophone. That became my entry into kind of the gigging world. And at that point in time, a few people I were working with knew I played guitar, so the multi-instrumentalist thing became what I was kind of known for. So I thought, well, why stop there? It seems like there's not going to be that much work if you're a solo saxophone player compared to if you play, other things as well. So I taught myself piano. That landed to be my first residency gig at the Universal Bar when I was 15 years old. And man, for as much crap as we can give the uni bar, that was a gig with a bloke named Glenn Walsh and Roy Martinez, which was, basically like one of the best rhythm sections you could possibly get in around town in 2008, 9, somewhere around then. So yeah, there were countless nights in the car park talking with Glenn about rhythm and what I lacked in rhythm. And a lot of that came from the fact that I hadn't prioritized it. I played melodic instruments and harmonic instruments, and that was a mystery to me. I wanted to pursue the study of chord extensions and voice leading and melody and all of that stuff. And rhythm, I could play a kind of straight 4/4 beat on drums, but drummers, as you all probably know, cop the short end of the stick when it comes to jokes and the attitude towards what it is that we provide. I should call myself a drummer. So it wasn't really until first things first, I went through a breakup, which when you're 19 is hard. So I bought myself a drum kit, and we just spend countless hours every day just playing, because it was a way of beating out the frustration. And then we were playing kind of during recital season, and we were hanging out with another bloody phenomenal drummer, Ethan Darnell, who was off touring the world and being a rock star. And so when Ethan couldn't make jams, I was kind of moving over to the drum chair, and that was playing effectively fusion music, I think, maybe some original compositions, lots of Snarky Puppy, if anyone's hip to Snarky Puppy, yeah. Not well. We played it as, as 4 testosterone-fueled 19-year-olds do. But yeah, it was kind of like, well, maybe I can do this as well. And so started taking it seriously. Unfortunately, it took me probably, I want to say 6 or 7 years after that point, 25, 26, before I finally went back and readdressed some of the fundamentals. And I'm sure that's not an uncommon narrative. I know, drums, it's a visceral experience to sit behind a kit and play. And conceptually, especially if you're talking about playing pop music, it's not too complicated. You get your foot moving on the right, you keep the left foot down, for God's sake, you smack the snare on 2 and 4, and that's basically it. You can start playing in bands and hanging out. Whereas as a guitar player, you have to learn different chords and bar chords. There's no bar chords here. So things like time and a true study and understanding of time, I did not pick up on early. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, what made me address it was finding out through the scene that there were some cats I was working with that were not that impressed with what I was doing. So you know, that was a humbling experience and a necessary experience for me and my ego at that point in time. And it began the study. So I want to talk a little bit about time and kind of how I've improved it. It's still a ways off where I would like it to be. I think everyone's is. Is anyone here familiar with a local drummer named Ben Fall? Yeah. Yeah. For those not, just put in Ben Fall honours thesis on Google. He wrote a brilliant paper 10, 15 years ago on the way that our brains actually learn to keep time. And the basic premise was that if you put something on that occurs at a regular interval, like a metronome, and you are able to make that metronome disappear by playing or clapping along, ideally clapping, because if you have sticks in your hand, you'll start playing rudiments and having fun, then you are training that intervallic recognition into your brain. And he listed out maybe 30 exercises, playing with a metronome, just playing quarters, and you clapping every fourth, and then eventually you would take the fourth click away, and you would learn to train that into the right place. Same thing with eighth notes and triplets, same thing with 16th notes. And what you are doing at that point in time, as far as I can tell, is training the small subdivisions. You are getting accustomed to what the feeling of 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, on and on and on. And that is hugely important. But as I have discovered going through my journey, not as important as the macro subdivision. So that's the ability to feel where the 1 of the bar comes back around. And this is not just like, I know that 4 beats have elapsed. This is the actual place that beat occurs. So the 3-ish things that I found to be really beneficial with helping me with that is, first of all, stop practicing with the click on the downbeat. Because if the click's on the downbeat, if you're slightly ahead or slightly behind, you can adjust. You can tell, you can hear that click is slightly off, especially if you're playing with a click right in your headphones. You'll hear that move slightly. When you put that click, say for example, on the and, so if we're feeling the time here, we'd have that click going like this. Should have set one up through the PA, but point being, now you are responsible for the downbeat, and it's your perception of that and that you are then adjusting to, and then you're training what the feeling of that and is. If you get comfortable with that, go to the 16ths, the E and the R. Am I moving too fast with this? Are people following along? Yeah, cool. I sometimes I've kind of done these things and someone's gone, I've never learned to count 16th notes, and I'm like, okay, let's bring this right back. So all of those exercises and making that a mainstay of the practice. I fall into this trap all the time of going into the shed, putting the click on the downbeats, jamming for 20 minutes, and going, yeah, this feels great, and then realizing that I haven't been paying attention to what's going on at all. If you can summon the discipline to start moving that click off the downbeat from the get-go, hello, then that's going to be, that'll be your best friend in starting to train those kinds of things. The other thing, and I've been doing this more and more since I invested in this kind of in-ears rack, is recording my band playing and playing along to the band without the drums in there at all. And that's amazing, because all that work that you do playing along to a click that's not outlining the downbeat starts to make sense, because the bass player is playing a groove that's going bump, 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 and you know exactly what subdivision that bass player is trying to outline. And if you are like me, I'd like to think of myself as less of a time dictator and more of a time make sound gooder. I feel that maybe it's just the way that I've grown up trying to facilitate what people are doing around me, but I really enjoy that process of feeling how the rest of the band are going and going there, rather than walking in and going, nah, you all listen to me. Not to say that that's not a fantastic approach as well. That's just the approach that works for me. And that exercise of taking a recording of your band and playing along to it is really, really good. In fact, I had a corporate show last night. I play in a band called Proof, which is just kind of top 40 stuff. But that gig is entirely on in-ears, which means that you hear every little detail. And in the lead up to the gig last night, I had a gig recording from a few years ago, put that on, played along, and we all commented backstage at how much better it feels when the drummer is able to move. If for no other reason, with no disrespect to my fellow musicians, that generally the guitar player doesn't work on their time. Generally the guitar player is stuck going skanky, skanky, skank.
Because they recorded.
Yeah.
Which Jack.
Yeah. and might I add, there are phenomenal effects that can be gotten by ignoring subdivision. Like all the tapping, sweeping kind of stuff. I doubt you're sitting there quantifying what subdivisions those are. You're just kind of going for a flurry. That's something, when you hear a drummer do that and nail that, that's also amazing. I cannot do that. The next kind of thing with regards to time, especially if you're a little more on the beginner side of things, is when you learn a beat, I imagine most people kind of learn the same way, where someone goes, all right, we're going to get 4 notes on the right hand continuously. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And on the first of those beats, you'll move your right foot. And on the third of those beats, you move your left hand. And you've got a groove. My issue with that is that this is what you are thinking about. This is the smallest possible subdivision that you are playing. When you think about the smallest possible subdivision, there's little margins for error along the way. Those margins of error eventually add up, and as I said before, going from beat 1 of the first bar to beat 1 of the second bar may have moved slightly, but the only variations are in the 8th notes or the 16th notes on the hi-hat. And this is super prevalent if you start playing with ghost notes and you start playing grooves that go. This becomes what you're anchoring yourself to, or for me at least. And I found that was kind of useless, because the guitar player, or the bass player especially, is not necessarily thinking da 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 da. They might be thinking bo, 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 something a lot larger. So the mental switch that I started to do, and I got this, not the concept, but I got this from watching Frank Salenza, was stop playing from your dominant hand. Stop playing from the hi-hat hand. Play from the snare hand. And in a practice session, that might look something like sitting down, maybe at first with a metronome, and just playing that 2 and 4. And getting that to feel consistent. I should talk over the snare. Bernard Purdy is way better at this than I am. And when that's feeling good, then you can start bringing in smaller fragments of the rest of the groove. The reason I like that is because this, all of a sudden, if this moves ever so slightly, that's what we may refer to as the human factor. This snare is metronomic, or as metronomic as we can aim to be. It's providing the foundation for all of the people who are playing around you. And this is now embellishment, along with ghost notes, along with extra kicks. And I find when you go and listen to, or when I've gone and listened to kind of 70s funk drummers and the people that we really revere for their pocket, that 2 and that 4 is consistent along all of them, but it's everything in between that moves. And actually, if you take like GarageBand or Logic or something and you program in a drum groove, put that snare in, and then take the hi-hat or take the kick and move them around. And it's amazing how quickly the brain goes, I accept this as a valid drum groove because I have an anchor point that is consistent every single time. That's been a really transformative experience for me. Anyway, enough yabbering. Play another tune.
Sure.
This tune probably won't demonstrate anything that I just said, because I really feel like I suck at playing this groove. But this is a tune that I wrote right before we went into 2020. And at the time, I'd just gotten engaged. And you get engaged, you see all your friends, and then you start planning a wedding date. And my very next thing was, well, better get into shape. And the done thing at that time was to go low carb. And so I entitled this tune Keto Jam. so I'm not hidden away. Anyone got the time?
1:45.
1:45 already,
I was
jeez.
going to say 6, 8.
Yeah.
Bucket of fish.
If that's what you think sucks, I'd love to hear what you think's good.
Oh, mate. Well, 1:45. I've got some things on here about kind of extrapolating ideas from things that you already know, and I've got some things on here about the process through which I develop chops, and we've got one more tune to play, and I wanted to try and get some questions. So maybe should we do some questions now and see where we end up? If anyone has anything. Yo.
What key is your kit tuned up to?
Key is the kit. I can't... what's that? B flat is B, B, B. Somewhere between a B flat and a B. There we go, that's the one. Jacob Collier tuning. Yeah, to be honest with this kit, this 12 is the finickiest thing. So I get this right, and then everything else kind of adapts to it. But anyone else here play Gretsch? I know you do, I know you do. Ian? Okay, everyone else is in for an easy journey. Gretches are like a toxic relationship because heads don't fit, they're fussy about tuning, they don't come with good hardware, and you'll spend a lifetime experimenting trying to find what makes the drum sound the best, but then when they sound good, they sound incredible. Same thing with this, like and actually this isn't a Gretsch problem, but it's just, I feel it's in the nature of Gretsch, the Ford floor tom leg started undoing itself as I was setting up earlier today, and we couldn't find the right size Allen wrench to tighten it back up, so I'm expecting it to fall through any minute. Does that answer your question? Anyone else? Yo.
How do you think having a grasp on other instruments helped you with drums?
Yeah, the thing that I used to say was this notion of musicality. And I think the reason I used to say that is because I played with a lot of drummers who learnt conceptually, learnt patterns, and then executed patterns, and didn't really know how to play and lead into sections very well. And being across melody and being across harmony, and definitely, I think sonics, because when I was a keyboard player predominantly, sound design was a big part of what I was focused on. Same, if you're working in the studio with production. So I think those kinds of things have influenced the way that I play. But at the same time as saying that, I check the same stuff out that all drummers check out. I go on YouTube and search Vinnie Colaiuta and search Andy Fissenden. And, Andy was a major, major influence at the beginning because he was around when I was a teenager. So that Llama Bar gig, anyone used to go to that? Yeah. Thursdays at Llama? That gig was kind of integral in shaping how I approach this, as well as the music that Dad listened to, which was a lot of Deep Purple, a lot of Led Zeppelin, a lot of early Midnight Oil, a lot of stuff that had intensity behind it. We were not a folk household. We were a pretty raucous household. So those things, I think, have shaped what I do in the biggest way. I would like to say I know what other instruments are doing, and I do, but I still struggle to catch on, same as anybody. But yeah, I like it. I like it knowing everything, because from a recording perspective, it may change some of the ideas, because I can hear where things may go pretty clearly. Yeah. Yo.
Your independence and your timing, is that purely just from jamming all the time, or do you actually try
Independence? What independence? Interestingly, Dad asked me this question the other week, and I feel like a bit of a hack talking about independence, because a lot of what I do is fairly linear. I think when we generally talk about independence, we're talking about having like one thing going on here, one thing going on there. A lot of what I do is which is like rudiments and doubles on the kick. In terms of maybe like that groove in the second verse of that tune, where if we have that, something like that, that is honestly, take the first two fragments of it, the first two notes, and sometimes it helps to etch it out on a piece of paper, and play them, and play them very slowly and play them until they're comfortable, then add the third note, then add the fourth note. Unfortunately, there's no substitute for hard work in those situations. What I can say is that in my lifetime, I have learnt verbatim maybe 4 solos. I've taken licks, but I've learnt verbatim 4 solos. And I think those 4 solos have probably done the most for my playing. And you'd think that that's a lesson there, that maybe if you learnt more note for note as to how other drummers approach things, you'd be a better musician. But I'm still a stubborn prick, so I still get in the room and just play the licks that I already kind of know.
Which 4? Yeah.
Which 4? So, if you go on YouTube and type Andy Fissenden Detour solo, there's like I think it goes for 4.5 minutes, and the first 3 minutes are just drums, and then the band comes in with a figure. I learnt that poorly when I kind of started out, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to restart the Llama Bar and I wanted to play like Fizz. Got to uni, I had to learn, what was that Weckl tune? No, it's a Mike Stern tune. It's not You Never Know, but it's another one of those kind of shuffle tunes, and Weckl takes a 50-second blistering solo at the very end that's outstanding. I had to learn that, and that was the one that started to reveal the weaknesses in the double paradiddles and the triple paradiddles, because the regular paradiddle, that was easy enough to just kind of blister through and play cool stuff. Getting to the doubles, that works you hard, because those singles have to be accurate, and who here works on their singles compared to their doubles and all the fancy rudiments? Yeah, exactly. I'm exactly the same. I never sit down and do that. I try to, and then I'll inevitably go. So yeah, that. The third one was the 4th track on the Thumper record. The name escapes me. That was also Andy Fissenden, and that taught me a great. Here's one you can take home for free. Everyone knows kind of the Steve Gadd. That lick. So if you're playing like. That's a pretty common Steve Gadd lick. One thing that Andy did, and I'm certain he didn't invent it, but rather than playing that as 16th triplets, play it as 32nd notes, which would be... which now crosses the bar line, sounds hip as... yeah, that was a really good one to kind of get off playing the downbeat all the time. To be honest, the 4th one escapes me, but I know it's there. I'll message you later.
With the Bucaro shuffle you were playing, do you do the Bo Diddley beat on that, or you?
The shuffle for the last tune?
Yeah, was basically the Jeff Bucaro.
Yeah, no, actually, that tune doesn't have the Bo Diddley shuffle. That tune actually started, I wanted a hip-hop groove, and I wanted the kick to catch with the guitar figure and be something like... the guitar figure was written first, and to be honest, I could not make that feel good at all. Every time I heard a recording back, it sounded wonky, and I wanted it to sound like, a happening African-American hip-hop player, and I am not that. So then I decided I'll add the shuffle on the hi-hat, and that almost softened the blow for the inaccuracies in the kick drum. And then yeah, the Purdy or the Bonham or the Bucaro ghost notes came in afterwards just to fill it out, make it sound fancy.
Have you ever experimented with a double kick?
When I started playing, yes, and I only did because there was a bloke around town who I loved who had a double kick pedal. And then I found out that the only time he used the double kick pedal was for the endings of tunes when you're washing on cymbals. So I abandoned the double kick pedal. It was just, yeah, too much for load-in. To be honest, if I had my time again, absolutely, and I would go through as Don Famularo does and learn all the rudiments with the feet and have access to that language as
I'd
well.
like to see what you do with it. Get some films.
Yeah, definitely. To be honest, what I would love is the Jonathan Moffat kind of thing with the different bass drums around you. Rather than going, like the traditional double kick is you want two sounds identical and you're using both feet to increase the speed. I love the idea of the same way that you may have two snare drums and have a groove that goes boom, ga-da, boom, ga, boom. Having two bass drums to do those kinds of things as well would be very cool. You know, once I get through this aiming towards home ownership phase of my life where I'm just working every minute of every day, maybe I'll get back to experimenting with that. Yeah.
Chris, quick question. Obviously, we've seen the validation of you as a drummer, and I think that you've done that quite well. We've demonstrated how you come from a multi-instrument point of view. For the budding people in the room that want to become composers, musicians, songwriters, and these kind of things, what way can you kind of reverse engineer your story back to the room?
Yeah,
and how to, basically, if you want to start composing for your group. I mean, one thing for drummers especially, hey guys, I brought the song to the room, and they're like, piss off, shut up.
Yeah, that's very good. We'll put it on the fridge where everyone can see.
The whole Foo Fighters story, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got one of the greatest songwriters on earth, still rocking out, the free world, literally.
Yeah.
So if for the room to encourage them and not to feel, I guess, a lack of confidence to have that approach.
Yeah.
What suggestions would you give to the room?
Yeah. When I started songwriting, I was very young. I remember writing songs, maybe 4 or 5, but I know that there is a recording of me when I'm about 8, having written music. And what I can reflect on, looking back at that now, is that there was a lot of overt imitation. There was like lots of music that we listened to on repeat that I knew inside and out, and I took sometimes in subtle ways, but more often than not in very literal ways from that to advance the compositions along. And that has this benefit of when you bring the song into the band, if the other band members haven't heard that record that you've listened to, they think you're a genius. Now, I don't recommend doing that, but what I kind of realized way later on in life is that that's only one approach. Another approach is to come at it very conceptually, which is often the way that you've written, I've felt, and often the way I hear drummers write. And if I speak for a minute about this kind of instrumental genre, and then I'll bring it back around to band music, that is such an asset. You have no idea how much of an asset that is, because as a melodic player, you just go to town on melody. I don't want to name any names of artists that I love, but if you go through that fusion bag, there are a lot of tunes out there that you're like, yep, that was a horn player tune. Yep, that was the guitar player tune. And then the drummer tune is generally with some like soaring melody over the top. Finding the artists that validate that back to yourself, I think, is really important. And being open to a diverse range of things. When I got back into composition as an adult, what I found the most challenging was I'd listened to Brecker Brothers and Mike Stern Group and Void and like all of these acts that I loved through high school, and I was pairing everything against that, going, why can't I write a tune that sounds like that? I could write a tune that sounds like The Living End, but why can't I write a tune that sounds like that? But what I was writing, what I was doing was starting to carve out my own idiosyncrasies. And then eventually through talking with other people, they go, oh, that's kind of reminiscent of this thing. You should check this band out. You go and check that band out. Now you're down a new rabbit hole. Like, anyone here familiar with Wayne Krantz? Yes. Wayne Krantz was Joe's honours thesis topic. And Wayne is this just incredible guitar player who decided, bugger, I'm not going to play the way that everyone expects a guitar player to play. I'm going to focus entirely on rhythm. I feel that I have a confident enough grasp on melody that I can manipulate that. And it's the kind of music that if you like melody, you'll probably snark at and put it to the side. But it's also the kind of music that is incredible at a gig, because you go on that journey of tension and release with the band through the whole night. So yeah, finding the thing to relate what your current voice is to was probably the most important thing. In terms of like band music with lyrics and all of that kind of stuff, I don't profess to be the greatest lyricist. What I can say, having had like a rock band in my adult life now, is we're all here kind of to share a piece of the human experience. And whilst part of that human experience can be as simple as, yeah, I want to make you party, I want to make you dance, what is there, like 30 people in the room right now? Each one of us has got a unique individual story, and we see things in our own individual way. And finding the way to tap into that for the band music, that's the key. And that's what makes songs last, I feel. I reckon, hot take, but if you go back and look at, when we go and say, oh, the 70s was full of great music and today's full of trash, it's like, yeah, but we're remembering the stuff that really honed in on the human experience for that person or for that group or just for that era. Like, there's nothing wrong with the song being, as vain as or as simple as, oh yeah, I like taking drugs and partying. If that's authentic, if that's part of your experience, then people resonate with that, as they do with, Steely Dan questioning life from every angle. Hopefully that answers the question.
That's pretty good answer, mate.
Can you tell us a little bit about your time at Whopper? What did that achieve?
Yeah, so I left high school at 16, and this is the funny thing I find looking back now. I spent a lot of time this year psychoanalyzing my own life and the reasons for the choices I made. Basically, there was a girl I was pursuing. Things did not pan out, and I went, bugger this, I'm done with high school, I'm going to go do the certificate at uni. And so I went to uni, and at that point in time, I was playing saxophone predominantly. That was my instrument at university, but I was gigging a lot on piano. And when I turned 18, I hipped to a new group of friends playing the kind of band scene around town that were very accommodating, some very, very important mentors in that era. Frank Frasina, Kerry Benara was a big mentor. Josh Dyson and Matt Allen were very close friends. We were kind of closer in age than the other guys. And so that became the focus. I was like, no, I want to go and play and gig. I don't want to be at uni being told that I'm not playing authentic enough for the genre, which was very much 18-year-old arrogance, thinking that I knew what was going on. So I left, or deferred the studies, gigged basically non-stop. I moved to Sydney, toured around Australia, came back, and at that point in time, my best friend was going to go back to do his honours paper, and I said, all right, I've been considering going and finishing this off, I'll go back as well. And that experience, it was interesting, coming from, touring the country and having the kind of inflated ego of now I'm somebody, now I can do this, I'm an adult, and then going and being put straight back through the same things that frustrated you years ago. I cannot profess that I did it in the best way. Rick Eastman was a champion, absolute champion, and we got to spend a lot of time together, and that was hugely inspiring. And the biggest thing that I think I gained from it was the friendship network, because that young crop that I was there with were really inspired, really keen on what I was doing and what was going on in the music scene as a whole. We spent lots of time playing music together, which is something that I felt when I was back there the first time I didn't get an opportunity to do. That's really, when I reflect on why you would go to music university, unless postgraduate studies are your primary goal, it is that fact that you get to play every single day and you meet a bunch of new people. That experience, like even thinking about, I would finish a gig and go check back into the practice rooms and practice till 1 in the morning, and then run into Danny and talk about Gretsch drums till 2 in the morning, and that side of things was the real benefit of going back to university. Anyone else? All good?
Question.
Yeah.
Trying to narrow it down. Coming from like a melodic instrument, saxophone's probably a good one, where you're focusing on like a note length, like start, middle, and end. Do you think that's helped your time on the drums in terms of now it's just stepping at that point?
I think the exact inverse. I think that being a this so I can see you. Being a saxophonist, it was very easy to think about just like pretty sounds and tone. Like tone is such a big thing on a woodwind instrument because it's coming from in here. It's a big thing on drums as well, but tone on drums is like how you play one note to the next, whereas tone on saxophone is the sound of that individual note as well. I think that when I started playing drums and realized you've got this tiny little transient to deal with, and the placement of that transient is everything. Then when I went back to the horn, it's like there is so much power in cutoffs.
Yeah.
And same, obviously with bass, that's hugely important. Influenced by guitar playing as well. And now I'm definitely clued onto it. It's a curse because you hear it now. Now you have to deal with it if it's not, happening.
So when you're playing with these boys, say you're doing like a solo with that band, or you're playing groove, mentally are you singing your drum group that you're playing? Are you hearing the melody? Are you trying to hear the quarter, or is it just yes to all?
What I have tried my best to work on is to hear how the ideas that I play relate to the figure. I don't block it out and go kick, kick, kick,
Yeah,
kick.
yeah.
Like in that last tune, hearing all of that kind of stuff. That's the only way I can hold on for dear life. I've never, again, because I'm not necessarily the most disciplined practicer, I never worked on doing this and doing everything else on the other side. So I had to rely on being able to hear how my phrase locked to what the others were doing.
It's about using your time effectively as well. If you're obviously composing, playing other instruments, doing other gigs, you've only got a certain amount of time in your day, so you're going to work on what's required to get that job done or that moment done.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny though, because what you want, and I'm sure anyone who's been playing longer than 5 years can testify to this, but what you want changes every year that goes by. When I started, all I wanted to do was play big, powerful, fast chops. Now, if I could be the guy that can play Staying Alive and 2 and a 4 where it needs to be, you know what I'm talking about. That trying to get, I don't even know if it is the hi-hat part, but there's a percussion part on that tune that's like, something like that. That's hard work. Especially if the guitar player doesn't know how to go, which is not a dig on the guitar player I work with. He does a very good job of it. We're probably well and truly out of time, hey? Do you want to hear one more, or should we just...
Nah, that's it, man.
I don't know what the rules are around here with going over time.
We're all drummers.
All right. This last tune, what is this called again? Exotic Influences. Which I don't remember why that's the title, but it is. The boss is here. Are we pushing it to do another tune, or?
Here for the other tunes you like.
All right, cool. Well, we're in no rush, so we can hang and chat and whatever, as long as you guys want as well.
17-minute drum solo.
If it was going to happen in any tune, it's this one.